So my name is Paul Rascagnière. As you said, normally I was planned to speak at 2, but I'm happy to be the first one to open this two-day conference. So I'm going to speak about Windows code signing protection. And in fact, I'm a malware analyst at the beginning. So all the presentation will be not based about things I directly found on code signing mechanism, but it's more based about malware analysis and how attackers in the wild trick this feature implemented by Microsoft. So I basically work in Europa between Luxembourg and Paris. And basically I perform malware analysis on all this kind of stuff. So first thing, on the first slides, I think I will not learn you something, but Authenticode, it's the mechanism provided by Microsoft to sign binary. It's based on certificate. So as always for certificate, you have an expiration date, and you can revoke certificate. So nothing really new in this thing. The most interesting thing is how it's used by Microsoft and Windows system. For example, we must separate the kernel mode and the user mode for binary signing. On kernel mode, for example, since Windows 7 64-bit, it's mandatory for driver. So basically, you are not allowed to load a driver if he's not signed by a trust company. And for user, so hard, you can create binary and never sign it, and it will work. You will simply have some pop-up or stuff like that. And I found on MSDN blog a short description I wrote here. It's more for prove its integrity, the binary was not changed, and develop its reputation. So typically you have this kind of window when you execute binary. On the top, it's signed by a trusted certificate, and on the bottom, it's not signed at all, and you can see the yellow banner at the top. So it's basically for global overview of Authenticode on Windows. So now I'm going to speak more precisely on kernel space implication. So, as explained, normally, since Windows 7 64-bit, you must sign your driver to be loaded, and when it's appeared, Microsoft describes this feature as the end of rootkit. As you can expect, it's not the case, and we already have rootkit even if we have this protection. I'm going to speak about 3 cases of rootkit that bypass this protection, and I divided this two kind of approach to bypass this protection: the low-cost approach and the high-end cost approach. The low-cost is simply to say to the system, I don't want to enable the signatures. So here is a command to switch in testing mode. The testing mode was here to help developers to create driver without having to signing each time. So when you enable this testing mode on the top right of your desktop, you have this message, test mode. So it's not really discrete, and you can easily see the message. I found several case where the winlogon process, winlogon.exe, it's a process that shows you this message on the desktop. I saw some case where the winlogon.exe process was patched in memory to simply never show the message to the users. But it's not really a bypass, it's simply a switch off. So that's why I call this thing a low-cost approach. And I'm going to speak about a more technical approach to really bypass protection and not only switch off the protection. Because we can expect that in few times Microsoft will disable the possibility to switch off driver signatures. So the first case I analyzed few years ago now is Ouroboros or Turla. The malware has different name depending on antivirus naming convention. And on this case, the developers used a vulnerability in a legitimate driver to bypass signatures. The driver was vbox driver.sys. It's a driver used by VirtualBox. And a vulnerability exists on it, and it's the CV I wrote here. And this vulnerability allows to switch an arbitrary memory address in kernel space to 0. It simply switch value. And how the developers of this malware use this vulnerability to switch off driver signature. In fact, you have a global flag on your system that said, I enable the signature or I disable the signatures. And the flag is called G_CI enable. CI is for code integrity. And with WinDBG, you can easily see the value of this flag. And before infection, the flag was at 1, so it's enabled. And after an Ouroboros infection, the flag is at 0, at null. So it means I disable the check, the code integrity, and I can load every driver I want. So by using this trick, by using the vulnerability to switch 1 to 0 this flag, it's efficient, it works. You cannot, you are able to load unsigned driver after the tricks. But if you use BCD edit to show the status of the signing enforcement, you will see that it's disabled because as the flag is set to 0, BCEdit check the flag and I'll reply to you, the signature is disabled. So with these tricks, administrators are able to see if the machine was modified or not really easily, simply by executing a command. Here is more or less the workflow to switch off the code integrity enforcement. Is the malware load the legitimate driver? So it was signed, so it's loaded, it's no problem. He loads ntrs-kernel.exe to find the offset of the flag. Use device I/O control with the following parameters, so this handle to the symlink and the address of the flag to switch to 0. On kernel mode, someone published full code to do that, and it's really efficient. So it was the first time I saw this kind of trick to be able to load driver without signing it. A few months ago, I worked on another rootkit called Derusby, and this one used the same approach. He used a legitimate driver that have a well-known vulnerability to switch off driver signature enforcement. But in this specific case, the implementation was different. The approach is the same, use legitimate driver, but the implementation is different, and this one is more clever than the previous one. So they use a novel driver, NICM.sys. So the vulnerability on this driver is not simply the possibility to switch value to 0, but the vulnerability allows to directly execute shellcode in kernel space. So if you look at WinDBG, you can easily see that the malware open a device here and perform a device I/O control on it. And if you look at the address of the data sent to the symlink, you can see this stuff. And the most interesting part is the part in bold. So if you look simply, it starts by 48, and I've got 48 here. It's the shellcode. And if you disassemble quickly this shellcode, you can easily identify that he take value on this address, perform a HOR on the address, and replace the results. So when I analyze the rootkit for the first time, I say, okay, it's an address, but what is behind this address? So thanks to the help of someone in the room, I was able to identify which DLL is loaded at this address is CI for code integrity and the path. So we can deduce that it's a trick to bypass code integrity, and I decided to go deeper and understand why this address, why this, or etc. So I do the same thing than previously. So before infection, my machine, the value is at 6, and after infection is E. So why is this value? And the first thing to do is to simply reverse ci.dll. So it's a huge DLL, but Joru provides some documentation about how the code integrity is initialized. So, and some things always, even if you don't really understand, you have some magic value. Here we have the 6 value, so it's the default value of CI option. And here, so if I am in test signing, we have CI option XOR or 8, and we have E. It's basically exactly what I can show in memory of my machine. So here it's simply the beginning of ci.dll. So in fact, the option is passed in R. If you look here, CI initialize and the CI option is the first argument. And if you look here, you have a memory address that finished by E30. In fact, it's simply a realign in my memory, but in fact, this value here, the D word, contain the flag of the CI option. And in this case, the switch is not performed directly to the global variable. The global variable of code integrity is always to 1 in this case. So if you use bcedit.exe and you check, the tools say to you the signature is enabled, but the DSB authors modify an internal variable of ci.dll to switch off the signatures. So in this case, the detection of the modification of the operating system is really complex because you cannot trust the command. You must check directly in memory with WinDBG or volatility if you have a memory dump to be able to check the specific value and check if it's 6 or E. So this approach is really more complicated than the previous one and more efficient. Another malware that a lot of people spoke about it is Greyfish from Equation Group, so theoretically from US government. And sadly, I don't have the sample to check how it's implemented. And basically, if I read the short description by Kaspersky on the report, it used a driver, a legitimate one. A guy used a vulnerability on this. It's clone CD program. And do more or less the same thing to disable kernel code integrity. But I don't have sample. Kaspersky never replied to me when I asked for sample. So if someone from Kaspersky is here and can send me the sample, I will be happy. And if competitors are here and are able to send me, I'm happy to. So, but I think that basically he used the same approach, maybe not the same implementation, and I'm interested by implementation. So it's purely expectation. I found a CV on this driver, and it's a local buffer overflow. And I think it's this vulnerability or it's a known vulnerability, but no new CV was opened on this driver. So if it's a new one, it means that Kaspersky never communicated about the vulnerability. So I don't know. Yeah. So, the thing is expiration date. And in kernel space, I discovered that the expiration date is not supported, simply. even if your driver is expired, you can load it without any problem. On every case I mentioned here, the two first one, I don't have the third one, the driver was expired, and it works. It was old CPU, sometimes it's 2008, so it's nothing really new, and you can load the driver and use it. And just for information, I think that the reason of why Microsoft never implement expiration is due to stability and production question. Because imagine you have an application, an old one, and one day you don't know why your application never worked again because simply the certificate is expired and you never update the application. So I think it's a reason. So it's not because they don't want. I think they prefer to don't do that. And the other thing is CRL, so it's Certification Revocation List. So all the case for last week, maybe it changed, but last week, all the certificates used by the two first attackers was not revoked. So it always works. And the problem is, imagine that each time a security researcher finds a vulnerability on a driver, if company have to revocate the certificate. Revocate means they must notify the certificate provider, and every users that use the unpatched version will have the same revocation list, and potentially you can have a big trouble on from a production point of view. And I'm not even sure that CRL works in kernel space. Maybe it's the same than for expiration date. I tried to test, but in fact it doesn't work. But I'm not sure I do it correctly or if it really don't work. So I'm not sure at 100%, but visibly it seems to not work. And this time it's not attackers, or it's not something I saw on malware, but a few months ago, I don't remember the date, but people from Geosecurity published an article about certificate included on Dell laptop, and it makes a lot of buzz concerning this article because we were able to perform man-in-the-middle attack, extra. But if you read the paper, I don't really care of the man-of-the-middle stuff, but for me the most interesting part, forget by journalists, is a chapter about Atheros private certificate leak. So inside of Dell installation, you have a verisign.pfx file, and it's protected by a password, but the password was found by the guy from Geosecurity. It's t-span. And yeah, I copy paste the stuff. So it's why the journalists don't really think about this leak. The guy says, thankfully, this certificate expired on blah, blah, blah. And when they published the paper, the certificate was expired. But the good thing is, on kernel mode, expiration is not supported. Even if the certificate is expired, I can develop my driver, use this legitimate expired certificate to sign them and load them. And I test on Windows, fresh install, and it works perfectly. So I check on VT, and I didn't find any binary, except the legitimate one, but I don't find unlegitimate binary signed by this certificate for the moment. Maybe after this talk. So I spoke about kernel space implication, and now I'm going to speak about user space implication. So I show you some pop-up of Windows binary execution. It's not really interesting. It's simply warning to users, and basically users always say yes, so it's not really useful. But on Windows 10 TH2, so the last version of Windows 10, Microsoft implemented a new feature on Edge browser, the new Microsoft browsers, and they perform a communication about it and explain that on Edge on Windows 10 TH2, it's impossible anymore to load inside of the process a library that has not signed by a legitimate provider. So I decided to spoke about this thing, and I had a discussion about this topic with Alex Ionescu. I don't know if he's in the room. I don't think so. And about what is documentation and no documentation. So on my paper, I wrote it's not documented, and he said to me it's on winnt.h, so it's documented. So it depends on the point of view what is the documentation or not. So it's simply the thread with Alex. So anyway. How it works. Microsoft on winnt.h, you can see a new structure on Windows 10 TH2. And the interesting thing is a signature policy. So now you have a policy on the process. The structure is for process. And if you look at signature policy, you have several flags. And the flag is Microsoft sign only, so the name you can guess the purpose. Stored sign only is Microsoft Store. Mitigation opt-in and some reserve flags. So how does it work? So basically, when you perform a load library, it creates an integrate section on kernel space to allocate section, and perform some EMI create section. EMI is for mitigation, I think. EMI validation, and finally, always the same DLL, ci.dll is called to check if the signature of the DLL you want to load is valid or not. Basically, on Edge, no, you cannot perform a load library to load not signed, not correctly signed binary. Or is it bulletproof? Basically, yes or no. For real DLL loading with load library call, it works. You cannot create shellcode to use load library to load driver. It will fail. But if you perform a dirty injection, typically if you perform an open process, write process memory, and put your own shellcode, it works, because you never use load library. The protection is already performed on the load library, not for other approach. So typically, if you look at banking Trojan, they perform inline hook at the beginning of interesting function, and this approach will always work with this protection, because the developers don't do that properly, but simply patch in memory in live with information. So you can, I put on our GitLab tools to get the value. You put a process ID in the argument, and it will say to you, it's this process is protected by Microsoft only extra extra. And a second tool that allow you to perform some tests by using load library and by injecting shellcode in a row directly. And the fun things on Windows 10 TH2 is, for example, calc, the calculator.exe, is no store tools. It's not classic Microsoft tools, but it's a store application. So now it's protected. You cannot perform injection in calc.exe. It doesn't work anymore. It's fun. So here, basically, all things I have concerning my research on binary signature and how malwares and malware developers bypass it. So if you have questions, I will be happy to answer if I can. And if you want to put an awkward silence, I'm okay too.
Questions, anyone?
I've been very late. Oh, sorry.
Someone. Do you have a mic? Do you have a mic? No, okay. Yeah, you first.
Very, very quick question. You mentioned that you tried the binary code signing, you signed a driver and loaded it into a clean Windows. Is that specific about clean windows for doing that?
No, no, it just out of the box without any hardening or stuff like that.
Okay.
This load library protection, I've seen that already in commercial software, which is doing that, and they always have a check type of use problem. Does Microsoft get it right?
For the test I perform, yes, but I don't spend too much time to bypass it. I simply take time to understand quickly how it works and the implication, but I don't spend time to try to break it, because I don't need, because I can simply inject shellcode and I don't really need to take time to break it, but maybe.
Anyone? Anyone else? Back? No? All right, Paul, thank you very much.